Tell me a little
I'm
about
Brad.
yourself.
I'm Brad Gosch. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. So I'm in the middle of the country, and I've been involved with CIS since I think the fall of 2018. So this is my fifth year anyway of training, and I really it's really provided me a purpose in the wintertime I hate the cold, I hate winter. There's nothing about it that I like, and having a little bit of structure and there's a little bit of the social aspect too. Maybe suffering with other people, even though it's only in my basement by myself. It feels like I am. That it really has given me a purpose in the wintertime other than work, and when I don't travel. It gives me something that I have a plan for when I come home at night. Whereas before I just go to the gym or I'd go home and do a ride on Swift, and it was fine, but there was no rhyme or reason what I was doing. I was just riding. It was almost a glorified trainer ride. I can't hear you now.
Everything you just said
Okay.
sort of completely echoes my feeling about it, and even more specific with you, because on Saturdays I feel like you're just a little bit faster than me. So like if I'm staying with you, I know I'm doing a good ride. Which
Well,
I love the social part of that. I mean, this is the first time we've met, but I feel like as a rider, I actually know you pretty well.
yeah. Well, and I'm a lighter rider, so I think on Swift I climbing is probably relatively easier for me than I know when I do all those flat group rides. Even though it may say 2.7 average, I'm working way harder than that, and I think it's because I'm a light rider.
I was trying to do the mix it up a little bit, the faster master rides on Tuesdays, and it's dead flat, and there's no way. I need a little hill to keep me in the pack. I hear you.
But
So
when you can look at the other riders, they're often doing 2.7, 2.8, and I'm doing 3.2, 3.3.
yeah, no, me too. So you're from the middle of the country, from Oklahoma. How did you find Coach and CIS? What's that?
Omaha.
Omaha. I'm sorry, Omaha.
Kind of the same, both in the middle of the country.
Yeah, I got that part right. Well, I grew up in Kansas for a long time, so I'm not just a New Yorker.
Oftentimes in the winter, I wish I was in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's true. Um, tell me, how did you find CIS?
Just for doing those group rides on Swift. I think the Wednesday World, that's how I was introduced to CIS. And I've had a couple of friends here that always had a coach and structured training. And so I had never really looked into it. And so I just called Coach David and we spoke, and it was in the fall. So winter time was coming. And so I thought I'd try it, and I'm really glad I did. And Coach Dave and I have talked a bunch. I have always been an athlete first, and then I for a lot of years I was a runner, and I basically ran just to stay in shape to play basketball and do sports, and when I went on hikes or skiing, just to be in shape for all that kind of stuff. And then I tore my ACL playing basketball a couple of times in 2008, 2010. It didn't bother me running, but I thought I probably will have arthritis if I keep pounding the pavement. And so that's when I started riding, like in 2011.
And what do you like about the bike? What's your favorite thing about being on the bike?
Number one, it's a workout, I think is the first thing I like about it, especially in the wintertime on Swift. But outside in the summer, it's the social aspect when I'm doing group rides. I actually, since I've been doing CIS, my group rides have gotten smaller and smaller because it's funny, but a lot of my friends who are very strong cyclists, I just find they're not very efficient. So I'd rather just go out by myself and do an hour and a half ride and be done, as opposed to all that inefficiency that they pound the hills and then they coast down the hills. Whereas we're so used to keeping pressure on the pedals. And so it's not a matter of me being stronger than them. I just have learned how to ride better, I think.
So you're answering some of my next question is, you know, what do you think about that you've really learned from CIS and Coach David? Like, what's the first thing that kind of pops into your head?
I've learned efficiency, number one. Number two, I've learned a lot about the metrics, about power, cadence, heart rate. I remember when the very first month, and I think everybody has gone through that, especially someone who starts with a fairly strong background in fitness and on the bike. But remember that first month of the training, you're doing zone 2 work. And I'd never paid attention to heart rate. And I would start working and I'd see it creeping in zone 3, and then I'd go, darn, and I'd stop pedaling because I panicked. And I'd talk to coach and say, I'm just not working hard enough. It's too easy. And he said, he'll get harder. Just be patient. And I did learn how to control the heart rate, not with stopping pedaling, but just changing the cadence a little bit. And it would just bring it right down. And that was the first thing I learned. And when you're outside, I don't look at that much. I think now, especially after 4 or 5 years, you just do it naturally. When you feel your heart rate is getting up there, you just shift a little bit and change your cadence.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I started racing when I was 15, and I didn't join CIS till I was 51. And I was just, and part of me was so frustrated that I'd ridden all those years and I learned in a month more than I learned in decades. And yeah, partly it was just learning how to control heart rate. I mean, that is like, especially as you get older, being able to like stay with younger guys by just being efficient and, you know, resting at speed, which is, you know, definitely coaches taught me how to do.
And when you're riding in a group, sometimes it has to come naturally because you can't, you know, when you're doing our training rides, et cetera, you're kind of really paying attention, dialing all that stuff in. But like on Super Saturday last week, doing that course with those guys, I'm just trying to stay with them. I don't care about my heart rate or cadence. I'm going to do whatever I can to stay with the group. And hopefully what I've learned, I do automatically.
Yeah. And it does. After a while, it does, because there is something intuitive and organic about it once you learn the rules. So I'm going to flip it. What do you hate most about the bike?
I guess riding in the cold. That would be it. Because I hate the cold. I'm a wimp and I'm not afraid to admit it. And I think Swift has changed all that. My friends here give me a hard time because if it's like 50 degrees, I'll often say, no, I'm going to ride inside. Because I have the clothes, but why bundle up when I can go downstairs and not have to think about it and just put my shorts and shoes on and ride?
Yeah, I have to do something. My garage is uninsulated. And so like I didn't ride on Super Saturdays last week because my garage was 18 degrees. And it's just like, I can't ride indoors and be that cold. Just,
no, I thought about that when you sent that message out. I thought, geez, I wouldn't ride outside in that. Certainly not.
Yeah, and so I have to deal with. I have to get some insulation for that and a new heater. Do you race, or is this pleasure for you?
I raced one time about 3 years ago when I discovered it, and then that was the last year they had it. It was a Saturday and Sunday thing where they had a time trial, and then they did a criterium, and then on Sunday it was a road race. And so I did the time trial and the road race, and I really enjoyed it, but there just isn't anything around here except for a few criteriums. And maybe I would like it, but that just seems really dangerous. Going around those corners, all it takes is one person that maybe doesn't know what they're doing to take the whole group out.
Unless you're fitter than them and you just ride away from them.
Yeah, that would have to be the case.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no racing around here, and I'm not willing to travel to do it.
Yeah.
But I know, like reading band and everything, there seems to be a lot of racing in New York.
Less than there used to be, but yeah, there is. But that's interesting, is you're willing to train as hard as you do. And I mean, I see you on Zwift, we ride together. You're really, really fit. And that takes a lot of discipline. So what's the motivation to basically be race fit and not race?
I think it's just always been my nature. I played sports my whole life. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I would run and do a lot of things basically to stay in shape for that, because you can't play basketball by yourself every day. You have to find people to play with. So therefore, you can't just play anytime you want to. And so I would just stay in shape to do that. And now as we got older, I still enjoy it. And as my wife says, I'm not normal, because who does that at 60 years old? Because it's not a lot of what we do. You can't say when you're doing it, it's fun, it hurts. But that's what also makes it so, you just feel good because it's a challenge mentally and physically.
Yeah, it takes an odd breed to get up early on a Saturday morning to ride 3 or 4 hours on a stationary bike.
Yeah. And doing the intensity that we do. That's why she says she feels like I'm not normal, and compared to the people we hang around with, I'm not. But my friends, I feel normal because they're all the same way, much like you probably are too.
Yeah. Although my team voted me the most likely to die on my trainer. Because I'm like you, if it's so much more efficient to get on one of Coach's workouts and on Zwift than it is to go out on the road. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is.
It is. That's what I have a big transition every spring and fall, going from one to the other. So when I get used to the indoor riding, it's really hard the first couple of times to go outside, mainly because it's very annoying to have to stop at stop signs, traffic lights, because we're not used to that. We've gone 5 months without that. And then it's kind of the opposite in the fall. I'm used to being outside. So it's a little bit of adjustment being by yourself down the basement, no fresh air. But once you get used to it, then it actually is better. And it is a better workout, and you get in shape in the wintertime. I'm in the best shape of the year, usually in spring, May and April, more so than in September.
Me too. And it's really interesting how Zwift has changed like local racing around here. Like the group ride I do, usually you used to be able to ride into it, like you could ride into shape on the ride. And now March 1st or the first week in March, when it happens, everyone's super fit. So, and then it does but you can't keep that fitness, all summer.
Yeah.
I'm curious, it's really interesting talking to you, because it's like hearing, same rhythms with this. And I find the fall very tricky. That first couple of weeks getting back into it after being outside. But it is this amazing rhythm. And I think that's part of Coach's genius, is this sort of how he takes the fall into the spring. And there is this rhythm that he has that I think I love this time of year, because I'm feeling like I've ramped up and I'm feeling really fit. And you can feel all that hard work paying off.
Yeah, sometimes like right now, when you get into that 5th and 6th months in those workouts, they're not fun. They're very challenging. And all day long, I usually do them at night after work. And all day, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm kind of not, but I'm getting myself psyched up for it. because it's
yeah.
really hard. And Coach and I have talked about it. I really struggle, and I think it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. I'm 60 now. That doing really high intensity rides early in the morning, like at 7 o'clock, I really struggle with that because my heart rate just jumps way up and I can't control it. If I can get an hour, like some of those Super Saturdays now, we do the pace trainer for an hour. That allows me to do kind of an easy hour, just loosening up. And then I'm usually more prepared. But last week, when you start right out, and I'm an hour earlier than most of the people on the East Coast. So I just don't have the time to do a proper warm up.
Yeah, I find the same thing. The hard workouts are better for me evening than early in the morning. And that has changed as I've gotten older. What advice, so you've been doing this for a while with Coach, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
I would say just stick with it. And if you really want to improve, it's important to follow the program. Because we all get busy and it's really easy to skip a day here or there. And if you do that, you're kind of missing out on a lot of it. And I think it's just everybody has to find that time. I think a lot of people do the workouts in the morning, and that's probably the safest time. I know it doesn't happen often in the wintertime, but occasionally I'm planning on doing my ride after work. And then I get a call at 3 o'clock from someone asking if I want to go to the basketball game. And my first thought is always, no, I can't. I got to do a ride tonight. But I usually go to the game because they wouldn't understand. And it is a little antisocial, especially in the wintertime here, to turn down that type of stuff.
Yeah, just maybe says how crazy we all are doing this. What's the sort of goal? Do you have one every year? Do you set a goal for yourself on the bike?
My only goal, and Coach and I have talked about this, is to stay the same, at least. Because I'm 60, I'm getting older. So if I can keep this kind of fitness, that's kind of my goal. And maybe that's kind of narrow-sighted, but I think, how old are you? You're
55.
Yeah, 55. So you're getting there too, where I came into this program in such high fitness as it was. I've just become smarter. I don't think that I'm really in better shape than I was 5 years ago. I just have learned to, like we talked about earlier, be more efficient. And so as I'm in my 60s now, I just really want to stay fit and not lose fitness if that's possible.
Yeah, I'm the same, but I will say, I've been doing this for decades, but I feel for the first time I actually know how to pedal a bike. Like coaches really taught me how to do that. And that's no small thing because every watt matters, especially as you get older.
Well, I was the same way before I met Coach David. I just rode. I didn't know what I was doing.